Hello and welcome to the MCQ lecture series. In today's class, I'll be dealing with some of the important MCQs with respect to microeconomics, which is the special economics paper for SYBA as well as MA Part 1. So let's get started. The first question is, dash is defined as the quantity of a commodity that will be bought at a particular price. Dash is defined as the quantity of a commodity that will be bought at a specific or particular price, whether you call it to be supply of a good, whether you call that to be demand of a good, whether you call that to be utility, or none of the above. So here it is pretty much clear that it is demand of a good is defined as the quantity of a commodity that will be bought at a particular price. So when you know that what is the particular underlying price, then you decide that what will be the underlying quantity which you would like to purchase or buy. So therefore it is demand of a commodity or demand of a good that is defined as the quantity of a commodity that will be bought at a particular price. So I hope this is pretty much clear. I hope you can imagine the demand schedule, given that one column is containing the price of that particular commodity and the other column containing the quantity demanded of that particular commodity. I hope this question is pretty much clear. Let us now move to the next question, which is talking about a demand curve is dash sloped. What kind of slope is seen in a demand curve? Whether it is positively sloped, whether it is negatively sloped, whether it is vertical or it is horizontal. So here I would bring to your notice that how a demand curve looks like. Here I am looking at the quantity, here I am looking at the price, and the demand curve is always downward sloping or negative sloping or negatively sloped. So therefore this is talking about the demand curve. So I hope you can see that it is a negatively sloped demand curve or the downward sloping demand curve. Therefore option B, negatively sloped, is the correct option or correct answer to this particular question. I hope you can visualize it with the help of this particular example or graph. Let us now move to the next question, which is talking about market demand curve is the horizontal summation of dash demand curves. Market demand curve, please pay attention to this word. Market demand curve is the horizontal summation of dash demand curves. A, the market demand curve, B, the individual demand curves, C, the producer's demand curve, or none of the above. So here you will have to realize that the answer for this question is going to be individual demand curve. So market demand curve is a horizontal summation of the individual's demand curve. So let us assume that there are two individuals, individual A and B. The demand curve of individual, now here quantity, here I am looking at the price. For example, this is an individual A's demand curve. Yeah, this is how you, because it is a negatively sloped. Yeah, then again here quantity and price. This is individual B's demand curve. Okay, so you sum this up because it is a horizontal summation of individual demand curve and the market demand curve. Here I'm looking at market demand curve, which is obviously the summation of A and B, and it will be somewhat like this. So this is the market demand curve. I hope you can relate to this. It is a horizontal summation of individual A and individual B's demand curve. Since there were only two players, individual A and B in the market, therefore we are looking at market demand curve like this. So it is for the entire economy, the number of individuals in that entire market, and therefore that is how the market demand curve looks like. It is horizontal summation of the same. So I hope the concept is pretty much clear. Let us now move to the next question, which is again very important. Which of the following are determinants of demand? Determinants of demand. Let us look at the underlying options which are available to us. The first is price of goods and services, the price of the good which you are taking into account. Second is the consumer's income. The third is consumer's taste. And fourth is all of the above. So these are all in a sense influencing a consumer's demand, and therefore they are all determinants of demand. Okay, so therefore A, B, C, that is the price of goods and services, the consumer's income, as well as consumer's taste, all are determinants of demand per se, and therefore all of the above is the correct answer to this particular question. Yeah, let us now move to the next question, which is again related to determinants of demand, because there are more than 3 determinants. So therefore let us look at the options which are available here. The options are price of complements, PC is price of complements, PS is price of substitutes, then consumers preferences, seasonality, all of the above. Okay, so also for example ice cream, now the determinant of demand, the demand for ice cream will be more during summers as compared to winters or rains. So therefore seasonality also plays an important role in determining the quantity demanded of that particular commodity. So that is why seasonality as well. Then consumers preferences, obviously, then also price of complements as well as substitutes of that particular good. Okay, so these are the three things, and therefore all of the above is the correct answer. So now in these two questions, that is question number 4 and 5, we have seen the determinants of demand, and they are price of the good which is into consideration, also the consumer's income, also the consumer's taste, then consumer's preferences, the price of complements and substitutes, and also the seasonality. So therefore these are some of the important determinants of demand. So you must have seen this equality or this equation, that quantity demanded is a function of income, price of the commodity, price of substitutes, then price of complements, then seasonality, taste, preferences, etc. So these are all determinants, because quantity demanded is a function of all these three things. That means quantity demanded is going to be influenced by the underlying changes in all these things, and therefore they are called as determinants of demand. I hope the questions are pretty much clear. That is question number 5 and 6. Let us now move to the next question, which is about the law of demand. It says the law of demand states that ceteris paribus, that means everything else remaining constant, there is an dash relationship between quantity demanded of a commodity and the price of that particular commodity. What does law of demand states? Whether it is a positive relation, whether it is inverse relation, whether it is a direct relation, or there is no relation, neutral relation is seen. So the law of demand states that ceteris paribus, there is always an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and price of a particular commodity, because what happens is as the price of a particular commodity increases, the quantity demanded is going to go down. This is an inverse relationship between the two. As this goes up, this is going to go down. So an inverse relationship between the two. So I hope option B serves the answer. That is, the law of demand says that ceteris paribus, there is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and price of a particular commodity. So as the price increases, the quantity demanded is going to fall, and the converse is also true. As the price falls, as this falls, the quantity demanded is obviously going to go up. So the inverse is also true with respect to the same. So I hope this question is pretty much clear. Let us now move to the next question, which is talking about the assumptions of law of demand, and here specifically I am asking which is not an assumption. Let us look at the question. Which of the following is not an assumption of law of demand? Not an assumption of law of demand. A, there is no change in taste. Okay. Wealth of the consumer remains constant. Okay. Income can change, and none of the above. So here the point 3, which is, or the option C, is obsolete, because income also has to be constant. Not only taste, preference, or the mental condition or everything else remains, or the wealth of the consumer remains constant, but also his income or her income is going to remain constant. So here it is saying that income can change or vary. So this is not the, because the question asking which is not the assumption, so this is not the assumption, that is income is changing. Rather, income also remains fixed or constant in terms of explanation of law of demand. So I hope this question is pretty much clear. Let us now move to the next question, which is again related to law of demand. It says that law of demand says that ceteris paribus, that means everything else remaining constant, an increase in the price of a good will result in dash, will result in a fall in the quantity demanded of a commodity, fall in the consumer's income, increase in the quantity demanded of a commodity, none of the above. So here we have seen that there is an inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded, and therefore as the price goes up, the quantity demanded should fall, and therefore option A is the correct answer here. According to law of demand we are talking, yeah. So you have to make sure that you read properly. Law of demand says that ceteris paribus, an increase in the price of a good will result in fall in quantity demanded of a commodity. Now there are exceptions to this. The law of demand, there are exceptions to law of demand, which we are going to talk about in the coming questions. So I hope this question is pretty much clear. Yeah. Let us now move to the next question, which is again a not sort of a question. Which of the following is not an example of substitutes? Not an example of substitute goods. Okay, so let us look at tea and coffee, car and petrol, a burger from McD or a burger from a Whopper from Burger King, and none of the above. So here we can see that these two examples are talking about more or less substitutions. That means if there is no tea, coffee is okay. If there is no burger from McD, a burger from or Whopper from Burger King is okay. But car and petrol are not. These are rather complementary goods. Yeah, they go along with each other. Yeah, so I hope that which is not an example. So car and petrol is not the example of substitute goods, rather it is an example of complementary goods. So I hope this question is pretty much clear. Yeah, so these are substitutes: tea and coffee, burger from McD or Burger King, Coke and Pepsi, and all of these. Yeah, so I hope substitutes are pretty much clear. Let us now move to the next question, which is talking about which of the following is an example of complementary goods. Here we have seen car and petrol is an example of complementary goods. So you know now both of them are going along pretty well. That is why they are complements of each other. Let us look at what are the examples of complementary goods. So here again, tea and coffee, okay, car and petrol, Coke and Pepsi, and none of the above. So now we can see that both these examples, tea and coffee as well as Coke and Pepsi, are substitutes of each other. They are not complements, and therefore here example of complementary goods is pretty much clear that it is car and petrol. So therefore option B is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope the concept of what are substitute goods and what are complementary goods is pretty much clear. Yeah, I hope you can now make out the difference between the two. The examples are good enough to at least have an idea of what substitutes and complements are. Let us now move to the next question, which is talking about another phenomena, which is wherein a consumer's income is increasing, and let us look at what will happen to the demand of a particular commodity. So now as the consumer's income increases, the demand of good falls. That means here in law of demand I was talking about when the price was increasing, the quantity demanded was falling. But now what is happening is when the income is increasing, the demand for which good is going to fall down. We have to identify the type of good. As the income increases, the demand for that particular good is going to be going down. So we have to identify this good. Let us assume that the name of this good is X. So we have to identify the good X, whether that good is an inferior good, whether that good is a luxury good, whether that good is a super normal good, or none of the above. So here it is very important to understand that whenever there is an increase in income, and if at all there is any fall in quantity of a particular good, such a good is always called as inferior good. So therefore option A, inferior, is the correct answer to this particular question. As the consumer's income increases, the quantity demanded is going to fall. Let us assume that let us assume that my income was rupees 10,000. Now at this income I was eating rice which was worth 80 rupees per kg. Okay, 80 rupees per kg. Now my income has moved from 10,000 to 20,000. Now I'm going to replace this from 80, I'll move to probably 120. So now, because after an increase, the one which was the one which was for 80 rupees a kg has now become inferior for me, an inferior good for me. So that is why I'll move towards rice which is worth rupees 120 a kg. So in this fashion I'm talking about. Yeah, so I hope you can understand this with the help of this example. So let us now move to the next question, which is given goods do not have a dash. Given goods. Now this type of good is a sort of exception to law of demand. So please pay attention to this. Given goods do not have a dash. They do not have a close substitute. They do not have close complements. They do not have demand, or they do not have supply. So here a given good is a good which do not have close substitutes. Which do not have close substitute. An example of given good is rice. Rice doesn't have a close substitute. I'm saying close substitute. I'm not saying a substitute. I'm saying close substitute. So therefore, whenever a good which doesn't have a close substitute, you call that good to be a given good. Let us now look at what are the other properties of given goods in the next question, which is the last question in this segment. Now, the demand for a given good increases even after an increase in its dash. Demand for given good increases even after an increase in its dash. Increase in its quantity, increase in its price, increase in its taste, and increase in its utility. So here this is an exception to law of demand, which says that whenever there is an increase in the price of a commodity, the quantity demanded is going to go down or fall. That is what law of demand says, ceteris paribus. But here in case of given goods, what is going to happen is with respect to increase with respect to increase in the price, the quantity demanded is also going to go up. That is why option B, price, is the correct answer. So I hope you now can relate that this is an exception. The given good case is an exception to law of demand. Law of demand says that there is an inverse relationship between the two. That means there's always a curve like this, downward sloping. But in case of given goods, what is going to happen is as the price increases, the quantity demanded is also going to go up, and therefore the curve will be like this. So as the price increases, the quantity demanded is also going to get on increasing, and that is what the case for given goods stands for. And that is why you say that it is exceptional to the law of demand, which otherwise suggests that as a price increases, the quantity demanded is going to go down, ceteris paribus. So I hope these questions are pretty much clear, which are in a sense talking about demand analysis. In the next lecture, I'll be taking up the concepts with respect to elasticity of demand. So please stay tuned. Thank you.